In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern. We do have a lot of activity expected across the United States as we see an above average tick in the precipitation over the next 15 days, which is a far stretch from what we saw earlier on this month of August. Far below average activity really for the majority of the month here, so a big change on the way there. We do have a lot of tropics to go over. Some of you may have seen my community posts from earlier. We definitely have a big time threat to watch out there in the Atlantic. We're going to be discussing that today, as well as multiple major cooldowns in the eastern United States, as we overall expect a colder pattern to prevail over the next 15 or so days. Now, before we dive into things, be sure to check out Prestige Weather at the top right corner of your screen, description and pinned comment down below. We have awesome features available there, and you can access it right now for 99 cents on your first month if you use discount code DIRECT at checkout. Only 2 more days of that promo, so be sure to grab it now if you do want to get it at that discounted price. We have awesome posts going on there, and we just uploaded our official final fall forecast for the fall of 2024 there, and the official September forecast for September of 2024. So if you want to gain access to all 2 of those forecasts, among other that we are doing for early access on screen here, be sure to check it out today. We also have incredible features upcoming over the next month or so. I'm going to be onboarding those, so if you want to gain access to a very new and improved Prestige Weather, be sure to check it out. Let's dive into things and take a look here at the upcoming pattern overall. And as you can see, we're going to take a look at later on this evening today on Thursday, August 29th, and what you see is a pretty decent low over south central Canada, a very intense cold front here across the plains and the Midwest here, bringing severe weather up and down these areas, strong thunderstorms along that intense temperature boundary. We're seeing cooler, drier air diving in from Canada here. And then we're also seeing a huge surge of humidity and warmth coming in from the Gulf out ahead of it. And that is a perfect storm setup for severe weather, unfortunately. So we're really watching these areas over the next 2 or 3 days. We do have plenty of thunderstorms coming in with that surge of Gulf energy here. So this is just going to bring overall tropical downpours, thunderstorms overall for a lot of those Gulf states. We even see quite a few thunderstorms present throughout the Mid-Atlantic. I think they have a marginal or a slight risk of severe weather here in the Mid-Atlantic. So definitely some pop-up thunderstorms occurring for these areas out ahead of all of this mess that's coming with this cold front. So let's just take it towards tomorrow on Friday, August 30th. We do see that this low kind of intensifies quickly and moves generally to the northeast. It's now over the Hudson Bay as a 984. Still, it has this very strong stretching cold front, still reaching towards the Four Corner states. So we're going to be watching for severe weather and overall strong thunderstorms along that front, not only for the United States here, but for a lot of Canada as well. There is a huge surge of warmth and humidity. You might feel it in the east. It was 99 degrees here in Virginia, Southeast Virginia. So yeah, you might feel it if you walk outside. It's burning hot out there, as we've been predicting. I get a lot of comments where people are like, where's this cool down you've been talking about? It's hot outside. But they kind of ignore the fact that I've been calling for a warm up before this cooldown that is coming for the beginning of September consistently. That has never been something that I've denied. So, it's not just going to be pure cold for the entire upcoming pattern. That is never to be expected almost. But there is a cooldown coming. That does not mean that it's not hot right now. It's definitely hot outside right now. And same story with tomorrow on Friday. We see these thunderstorms out ahead of that cold front still. So throughout a lot of your deeper south, the southeast, and the mid-Atlantic, we're seeing plenty of thunderstorms around for all of these areas. Again, as I've kind of been talking about, if you do enjoy thunderstorms, at least the non-damaging kind, all thunderstorms are dangerous, right? But some of us do enjoy quite a bit of thunder and rain. It's pretty nice sometimes. Soak it in, because this is going to be the pretty much tail end of the thunderstorm season if you're north of, let me kind of draw a line here. If you're north of here approximately, you're kind of drawing in towards the end of your thunderstorm season, so be sure to enjoy it. Down here, yeah, you might have, eternity left to deal with thunderstorms being possible every month of the year, but for areas north of there, they become pretty rare for the late fall into the winter. Let's take it towards Saturday as we approach into the weekend here. Saturday the 31st, again, the final day to receive that code DIRECT discount at Prestige Weather, so be sure to grab it. It's a killer deal. We do see that this cold front is reaching further and further towards the east here, now something like this. So we still have a bit of a surge of warmth and humidity up the east coast here. Still some thunderstorms out ahead of the cold front present for some of these areas. But this cold front is rapidly approaching. Still expecting some severe weather to be possible along this line, so be on the lookout for that. We overall have colder, drier air moving into the east here by this point. And we have this kind of surge of warmth happening out west alongside some pretty dry weather overall. We don't see any precipitation out there. So this is a pretty big setup for a cooler pattern in the east. We see by Sunday on the 1st, we're dealing with a full-blown cool down here in the east with that major ridge over the west. So we see this big warm bubble here over the west, and this is really creating an imbalance. We see this jet stream diving southward and eastward here, and that is allowing for this cooler, drier air to take over for a majority of the east here. We have a 992, fairly strong low pressure system here over eastern Canada. And we still have this kind of cold front, maybe even stationary front located over a lot of the eastern states by this point. So be on the lookout for more activity. Again, like we mentioned in the beginning of the video in the intro, more activity on the way here. And it's really coming as a result of this very slow moving stationary front. I talked about it yesterday, but when you see the warmth kind of pushing from the south and the cold pushing from the north, so we see this at multiple points here. And, you know, they're pretty equal in force. Cold is winning out a little bit, but overall this is staying pretty stagnant. You don't see these thunderstorms moving just southward. They actually move to the east along that line, along that frontal boundary. So that is going to create some flooding possibilities as you see storm after storm after storm. We call it actually training. So like imagine train carts moving along the train track. That's kind of you're along the train track is what it is, and that train is coming. So that's a good way to look at it. So storm after storm after storm along your train track does kind of tack on the total precipitation for sure. Could bring some flooding risk with it. And not only that, stronger thunderstorms could be present still along that line. By Monday, we do see that this does slow down, and this stationary front is a little bit further south. It's still present. What this means is that colder air is moving in to some more areas. So the further south that line goes, the further the cold is making it. So if you're to the north of this precipitation, you're likely dealing with much cooler and much drier conditions. Your jet stream by this point is doing something like this. So it is taking a little bit of a western inversion there and then doing something like that. So if you're in any of these areas, you're definitely dealing with some cooler weather. It's definitely cooler for these areas, but it's not as significant as the areas to the north here. Very warm and quite dry out west is the trend here as well. Let's take a look at Tuesday on September 3rd, and it looks a lot like Monday. We see some Rocky Mountain showers, perhaps thunderstorms happening out there, but still kind of this stationary front is taking hold. It's much further south by this point now, so it is kind of tracking further south every day, but it's just this slow, grueling trip to the south here for this storm. We do see that it is still bringing some pretty heavy precipitation throughout the south central, Gulf states, and the southeast as well there. But again, this cold has advanced further southward, and we're seeing a very pleasant early fall pattern for the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd here. Definitely going to be a sneak peek of what to expect for later September into October as things will get even colder, obviously. As we take a look here at Wednesday on September 4th, we see that it is similar, although this cold is beginning to lift off, so we are seeing it start to slowly move out now. It should still be pretty pleasant, but might not be as cool as Monday or Tuesday was. By Wednesday the 4th is what I would expect. The storms are still there throughout the deeper south, a little less intense by this point. Now, definitely, as we see a lot of moisture over the tropics, be on the lookout for any tropical development that could take place here along areas close to the United States. We do see this happen from time to time, and when it does, it's oftentimes a setup like this one. So we're still kind of watching that early September timeframe for something like this. Let's take this towards Thursday on the 5th here, and what we're seeing is the cool down has officially kind of lifted off. We still see a little bit of a cold dip here in the east, but it should be near normal conditions here for a lot of the east. The west is cooling, but still near normal, if anything, maybe a little bit above normal. We still see a lot of moisture along the Gulf and southeast coast, and we're going to be watching the tropics here over kind of the Caribbean as we should see a tropical cyclone move on screen now, and this is the same one from my community post this morning. The ensemble models, which we're not going to dive into today. If I had time, I definitely would. We're going to talk about that more as we draw closer to this storm, obviously. But they have many, many solutions, including very strong hurricanes moving dangerously close to the East Coast, dangerously into the Gulf, approaching perhaps the Gulf Coast, some out to sea as well. Anything is possible, and we are seeing some warning signs from these models that this system could be severe. It could be very intense. So definitely something that we're watching for is this could be a major hurricane threat later on. The key word there is could. Definitely prepare for the worst, hope for the best. At this point, nothing is set in stone, so definitely a lot of time to go. We're going to be discussing this storm a lot more. Even today, we will discuss it a lot more, but in the future, especially coming days, we're going to be really breaking this one down. So as always, be sure to subscribe. We do upload every single day. Now, as we take this towards Saturday on September 7th, we still see quite a bit of moisture along the southeast, but it is quite a bit drier. Still subtly warm and subtly cool here in the east. Warm out west, cool in the east here, but not as severe as things once were. We do see a little bit of a cold front here and truly Arctic air moving into the east here by this point, the east of Canada, that is. We see a really intense Arctic air mass there. Definitely something to watch for. Sunday here on the 8th, this is the final frame of this model run. We do see 1003 here approaching the Gulf of Mexico, so the European model takes that kind of Gulf of Mexico look. And we do see some tropical interest off the southeast coast that could develop into something. So slowly but surely these tropics are waking up, and it's looking apparent that we could move into an extremely active period here very shortly. The jet stream pattern is still favoring cooler temperatures in the east and warmer out west, so a majority of this model run has featured that type of a pattern. As we take a look at the GFS model, which will get us a bonus kind of couple of days here at the end as well, we see the very active pattern in the east, cooler in the east as well here, prevailing on this model as well. We get another cool down here for around the 8th. So September 8th, we get another major cool down. Same thing, the kind of the stationary front look. So activity could kind of come accompanied by that cooler air. We see that kind of continue here. Still cooler in the east by the 12th, warmer in the west. We do, at the very end after the 10th, begin to get a cool in the west, warm in the east look here. Something like this really being the favored pattern on this GFS model, at least, towards again after the 10th. Take this with a grain of salt. This is beyond 10 days, which is kind of the fantasy land a little bit. We start to see models become a lot less firm with what they're thinking, and they can tend to really vary model run to model run here. So we will keep you guys up to date with this, but this could change for sure, as anything could, but the chances are certainly higher here after 10 days. Now, your European AI model, this is going to get us a little bit of an extended look at the tropics. We do see that this system, it originates here. It's right in the middle of our MDR right now, which is your main development region right here. That's between Africa and the Caribbean. And we do see this one kind of want to move into the southern Caribbean, maybe towards the Gulf, just like the European model showed here. So let's watch this play out. And this one, thankfully, this would be a really good solution, actually, even for Central America. It does strike Central America, but as a very weak storm, and that would keep it far suppressed. Typically, the areas here to the south of the Caribbean here, especially with that land interaction, is not a very favorable place for tropical cyclones to head. They very rarely intensify very greatly in these far southern areas, especially when they're up against the land. So that would be a very favorable outlook for everyone in the Americas and the Caribbean, of course. Now we do see a low trying to form, just like on the European model, off the East Coast. So let's watch that one closely as well. And that one does develop into a pretty hefty, perhaps tropical depression, tropical storm, perhaps kind of post-tropical. That would kind of have to be tracked as we move forward, but this definitely would have some tropical characteristics, I would say. Now we do see that this low is 1001 there over the southern Gulf of Mexico. That is still a pretty weak storm, if even a storm, might be a depression there. So somewhere between tropical depression and tropical storm at 1001 typically. Could bring some very heavy precipitation, though. We do have another tropical wave showing up here around the 8th, so let's watch this one. And that one kind of wants to stay in the middle of the Atlantic, which would be good news for everyone. Some lower pressure signals off the southeast again, though, could bar more threats down the road. So even though we don't get anything too major as far as landfalls here, again, this is just one model. The ensemble models, which is 30 plus models when we look at the GFS and European model families, probably 50. I think it's about 50 or more. We do have very, very many showing threats along the Gulf, the East Coast, the Caribbean. All of these areas should be on high alert as there's many possibilities. Don't just consider this the only possibility, what I'm showing you here, because there's many things that are kind of under the radar right now where we're seeing a lot of land impacts with major hurricanes down into the 950s even, or 940s. I've seen some ensemble models show, which would be a very hefty hurricane. So the sky is the limit, unfortunately, with this potential tropical cyclone, especially the one in the middle of our MDR right now. So we're going to track that a lot moving forward. Total precipitation over the next 15 days is a huge uptick from previous model runs, looking very above average for the south central into a lot of the southeast. So let's just take a look at those anomalies. And sure enough, here we are taking a look at it, and these areas are, for the most part, above average. So again, activity kind of on the upswing here, especially for the south central and I would say the western Gulf Coast or central Gulf Coast there around Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. So definitely these areas are seeing much more precipitation than they had over the past month or so. Especially these areas have been very, very dry. Now, the temperature pattern, we do see this upcoming, well, ongoing warm up here. So again, that what we've been forecasting. Cool down moves in for the first here, second, third. Very cool up there in the Northeast and Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley. The greens are going to be 10 to 15 degrees below normal, which is a very significant departure from what's typical. And this cooldown, especially in the east, sticks around for many days. We see this next really strong Arctic blast move through. This is going to be for the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. Look at this. We're seeing Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, these areas that have been suffering in the heat, seeing significant cooldowns here around that kind of 8th, 9th, 10th time frame. And a lot of these kind of more purplish blues inside these greens are 15 to 25 degrees below normal, which on September 10th would bring late October, early November like patterns. So we would really see far departures from normal if this was the case, and it would be outright cold for many areas. Not cool, cold. So that would be a very significant early fall cool down. And look at this, still warm out west. I talk about this a lot, but the warm out west is really what is causing these cooldowns to over and over again move into the east here. When we see this warmth surging well up into Canada, that cold that was here has to go somewhere. So it's just spilling to the east of this warm up is what we're seeing happen. And that's a pretty frequent pattern that we see. We overall see this cool linger. No more Arctic blasts according to this model, but again, 12th, 13th, 14th, we are trending warmer in the east. Nothing too significant, but near normal to perhaps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe pushing 7, 8, 9 degrees above average for a few areas, but nothing even warmer than normal compared to the cooler than normal temperatures we saw, which were again 10 to 15, even 15 to 25 degrees below normal. So near normal to slightly above normal. Could even see cold beyond this point. Only time will tell. We do have some insight, though, into the upcoming pattern as far as beyond that point. So let's look at the long-range temperature forecast. Here's the 1st through the 5th here. And we do see colder in the east overall. No surprise there. All model guidance is pretty much pointing towards this at this point. Now, here is the 5th through the 10th. It's a lot of the same here. And then the 10th through the 15th, although we see the GFS model calling for warmth, we see this long-range model saying, no, not today. Or I guess not September 10th. This is the 10th through the 15th, colder in the east. 15th through the 20th, not quite as cool, but it still is. And here's the 20th through the 25th, still cold in the east. And then finally the 25th through the 30th, it looks like something is cooling or warming up finally in the east. Here, we see that kind of prevail until the 1st through the 6th, where it looks like this cold might be making a comeback. And sure enough, it is. Here is the 5th through the 10th of October. More cold on the way. And then it even looks like this is the furthest we can get out. But the 8th through the 13th looks quite cool in the east as well. Definitely take this with a grain of salt. Again, 10 to 15 days out is kind of fantasy land. So a month plus out is definitely pretty hard to get right here. But these models can have some insight into what to expect. Usually, if anything, the timing and location could be a little bit off. The main takeaway is that we're seeing frequent cold cooldowns over the next few months. That is something that the models can really have an idea of, and I definitely would watch it closely. here is overall the next 30 days. I want to show you overall from this model the next 30 days. So this is August 31st through September 30th. And you can see that the September look right now is cooler in the east overall, warmer out west, which again is causing that spillover frequently like we're seeing now throughout the month of September on this model. So definitely very, very interesting there. Let's take a look at the National Hurricane Center 7-day outlook here, and we do see we have a 40% chance of development now with this system. They do kind of lean towards the European model with that southern Caribbean route, although there is some possibility for it to hit near Puerto Rico or to the north if it even develops. So we're going to be watching this one closely, but now in 24 hours we've jumped from a 20% chance up to a 40, and we're going to have to see tomorrow if we see any change. So be sure to subscribe for that. Among other things, we do upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.